Hare Krishna, everyone. Welcome back to the live studios of the daily readings of Srila Prabhupada's books. And tonight again, we're in the Bhajan Kutir of yours truly in ISKCON Bhaktivedanta Ashram, just across the street from Giriraj, Govardhan Hill itself. We've reached the Srimad-Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 22. We're going to hear about the marriage of Kardama and Devahuti. But before we do, we're going to read, as we do every night, the famous, well, becoming famous, I hope, prayer by Sanatana Goswami in glorification of Srimad-Bhagavatam, a short prayer of 5 verses, which analyzes the Srimad-Bhagavatam very nicely, and would do well, all of us. It would do well for all of us to learn these verses and the meanings. And Sanatana Goswami is the senior disciple of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself. He was instructed, Lord Chaitanya spent the most time instructing Sanatana Goswami than anyone on the earth planet. So this is coming right from the source. And it goes like this. Sarva Shastrabdi Piyusha Sarva Vedaika Satpala Sarva Siddhanta Ratnadya Sarva Lokaika Drikprada. O nectar from the ocean of all scriptures, singular fruit of all the Vedas, rich mine of the precious gems of all conclusive truths, you are the only giver of sight to all the worlds. Sarva Bhagavata Prana Srimad Bhagavata Prabho Kalidwandoditaditya Sri Krishna Parivartita. O life heir of all the Supreme Lord's devotees, O Master Srimad Bhagavatam, you are the sun risen in the darkness of Kali. You are the exact image of Sri Krishna. Paramananda Pataya Prema Varshakshadayate Sarvada Sarvasevyaya Sri Krishnaya Namostume. I bow down to you, who are supremely blissful to read. Your every syllable pours down a flood of prema. You can always be served by everyone. You are Sri Krishna himself. Madeka Bando Matsangin Madguno Man Mahadana Mad Nishtadaka Mad Bhagya Mad Ananda Namostute. My only friend, my constant companion, my spiritual master, my great wealth, my savior, my good fortune, my source of ecstasy, I bow down to you. Asadu Sadhu Tadayin Adini Chochata Kada Hanamun Chakadachin Mam Premna Rit Kantayospura. O bestower of saintliness to the unsaintly, O exalter of the most fallen, please never leave me. Always appear in my heart and my voice with pure love. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. 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 So we've reached the 22nd chapter, as I mentioned, of the 3rd canto. This is entitled Devahuti Marries Kardama, Muni. We're in the middle of a conversation between Kardama, the future husband of Devahuti, and the father of Devahuti, Swayambhuva Manu, the first king of the earth and the universe. And it should be noted the deep respect and affection and cultured way that these two great souls are speaking to one another for our benefit. Text 5. Swayambhuva Manu is speaking to Kardama Muni. Now I have resolved all my doubts simply by meeting you. For your lordship, has very kindly and clearly explained the duty of a king who desires to protect his subjects. Now it's very interesting here, you see. The king is calling the sage your lordship, even though the king is normally called your lordship. It shows the mutual respect that the king had for the saints, and vice versa, which now is completely lost to antiquity in human society, practically. Purport. Manu described herewith the result of seeing a great saintly person. Lord Chaitanya says that one should always try to associate with saintly persons, because if one establishes a proper association with a saintly person, even for a moment, one attains all perfection. Somehow or other, if one meets a saintly person and achieves his favor, then the entire mission of one's human life is fulfilled. In our personal experience, we have actual proof of this statement of Manu. Once we had the opportunity to meet Vishnupad Sri Srimad Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj, and on first sight he requested this humble self to preach his message in the Western countries. There was no preparation for this, but somehow or other he desired it. And by his grace we are now engaged in executing his order, which has given us a transcendental occupation and has saved and liberated us from the occupation of material activities. Thus, it is actually a fact that if one meets a saintly person completely engaged in transcendental duties and achieves his favor, then one's life mission becomes complete. What is not possible to achieve in thousands of lives can be achieved in one moment if there is an opportunity to meet a saintly person. It is therefore enjoined in Vedic literature that one should always try to associate with saintly persons and try to disassociate oneself from the common man, because by one word of a saintly person, one can be liberated from material entanglement. A saintly person has the power, because of his spiritual advancement, to give immediate liberation to the conditioned soul. Here Manu admits that all his doubts are now over, because Kardama has very kindly described the different duties of individual souls. Text 6. It is my good fortune that I have been able to see you, for you cannot easily be seen by persons who have not subdued the mind or controlled the senses. I am all the more fortunate to have touched with my head the blessed dust of your feet. Purport. The perfection of transcendental life can be achieved simply by touching the holy dust of the lotus feet of a holy man. In the Bhagavatam it is said, Mahat Pada Rajo Vishayakam, which means to be blessed by the holy dust of the lotus feet of a Mahat, a great devotee. As stated in Bhagavad Gita, Mahatmanas too, those who are great souls are under the spell of spiritual energy, and their symptom is that they fully engage in Krishna consciousness for the service of the Lord. Therefore they are called Mahat. Unless one is fortunate enough to have the dust of the lotus feet of a Mahatma on one's head, there is no possibility of perfection in spiritual life. The parampara system of disciplic succession is very important as a means of spiritual success. One becomes a Mahat by the grace of his Mahat spiritual master. If one takes shelter of the lotus feet of a great soul, there is every possibility of one's also becoming a great soul. When Maharaj Rahugana asked Jad Bharat about his wonderful achievement of spiritual success, he replied to the king that spiritual success is not possible simply by following the rituals of religion, or simply by converting oneself into a sannyasi, or offering sacrifices as recommended in the scriptures. These methods are undoubtedly helpful for spiritual realization, but the real effect is brought about by the grace of a Mahatma. In Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur's 8 stanzas of prayer to the spiritual master, it is clearly stated that simply by satisfying the spiritual master, one can achieve the supreme success in life. And in spite of executing all ritualistic performances, one cannot satisfy. If one cannot satisfy the spiritual master, one has no access to spiritual perfection. Here the word akritatmanam is very significant. Atma means body, soul, or mind, and akritatma means the common man, one who cannot control the senses or the mind. Because the common man is unable to control the senses and the mind, it is his duty to seek the shelter of a great soul or a great devotee of the Lord and just try to please him. That will make his life perfect. A common man cannot rise to the topmost stage of spiritual perfection simply by following the rituals and religious principles. He has to take shelter of a bona fide spiritual master and work under his direction faithfully and sincerely. Then he becomes perfect without a doubt. Text 7. I have fortunately been instructed by you, and thus great favor has been bestowed upon me. I thank God that I have listened with open ears to your pure words. Isn't this incredible? Here's the king being submissive to a saintly person. And he's also a saintly person. Swayambhuva Manu is one of the Mahajans. So it's not that if you become elevated and special, that you think yourself special to the point where you can't submit yourself to a superior personality. This is very important. Humility, the humility of both these persons and how they speak to one another as a result is quite instructive. And if we can assimilate this in our society, and everyone who's acting on this principle, but charity begins at home. Right? So the first thing is for us to develop this degree of humility and culture. What's in your wallet? Translation. I have fortunately been instructed by you, and thus great favor has been bestowed upon me. I thank God that I have listened with open ears to your pure words. Purport. Srila Rupa Goswami has given directions in his Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu on how to accept the bona fide spiritual master and how to deal with him. First, the desiring candidate must find the bona fide spiritual master, and then he must very eagerly receive instructions from him and execute them. This is a reciprocal service. A bona fide spiritual master or saintly person always desires to elevate a common man who comes to him. Because everyone is under the delusion of Maya and is forgetful of his prime duty, Krishna consciousness. A saintly person always desires that everyone become a saintly person. It is the function of a saintly person to invoke Krishna consciousness in every forgetful common man. Manu said that since he was advised and instructed by Kardama Muni, he was very much favored. He considered himself lucky to receive the message by oral reception. It is especially mentioned here that one should be very inquisitive to hear with open ears from the authorized source of the bona fide spiritual master. How is one to receive? One should receive the transcendental message by oral reception. The word karna randahi means through the holes of the ears. The favor of the spiritual master is not received through any other part of the body but the ears. This does not mean, however, that the spiritual master gives a particular type of mantra through the ears in exchange for some dollars, and if the man meditates on that, he achieves perfection and becomes God within 6 months. Such reception through the ears is bogus. The real fact is that a bona fide spiritual master knows the nature of a particular man and what sort of duties he can perform in Krishna consciousness, and he instructs him in that way. He instructs him through the ear, not privately, but publicly. You are fit for such and such a work in Krishna consciousness. You can act in this way. One person is advised to act in Krishna consciousness by working in the deity's room. Another is advised to act in Krishna consciousness by performing editorial work. Another is advised to do preaching work. And another is advised to carry out Krishna consciousness in the cooking department. There are different departments of activity in Krishna consciousness, and the spiritual master, knowing the particular ability of a particular man, trains him in such a way that by his tendency to act, he becomes perfect. Bhagavad Gita makes it clear that one can attain the highest perfection of spiritual life simply by offering service according to his ability. Just as Arjuna served Krishna by his ability in the military art, Arjuna offered his service as a military man, and he became perfect. Similarly, an artist can attain perfection simply by performing artistic work under the direction of the spiritual master. If one is a literary man, he can write articles and poetry for the service of the Lord under the direction of the spiritual master. One has to receive the message of the spiritual master regarding how to act in one's capacity, for the spiritual master is expert in giving such instructions. This combination, the instruction of the spiritual master and the faithful execution of the instruction by the disciple, makes the entire process perfect. Srila Vishwanath Chakrabarti Thakur describes in his explanation of the verse in Bhagavad Gita, Vyavasayatmika buddhi, that one who wants to be certain to achieve spiritual success must take the instruction from the spiritual master as to what his particular function is. He should faithfully try to execute that particular instruction and should consider that his life and soul. The faithful execution of the instruction which he receives from the spiritual master is the only duty of a disciple, and that will bring him perfection. One should be very careful to receive the message from the spiritual master through the ears and execute it faithfully. That will make one's life successful. Text 8. O great sage, graciously be pleased to listen to the prayer of my humble self, for my mind is troubled by affection for my daughter. Purport. When a disciple is perfectly in consonance with the spiritual master, having received his message and executed it perfectly and sincerely, he has a right to ask a particular favor from the spiritual master. Generally, a pure devotee of the Lord or a pure disciple of a bona fide spiritual master does not ask any favor, either from the Lord or from the spiritual master. But even if there is a need to ask a favor from the spiritual master, one cannot ask that favor without satisfying him fully. Swayambhuva Manu wanted to disclose his mind regarding the function he wanted to execute due to affection for his daughter. Text 9. My daughter is the sister of Priyavrata and Uttanapad. She is seeking a suitable husband in terms of age, character, and good qualities. Purport. The grown-up daughter of Swayambhuva Manu, Devahuti, had good character and was well qualified. Therefore she was searching for a suitable husband just befitting her age, qualities, and character. The purpose of Manu's introducing his daughter as the sister of Priyavrata and Uttanapad, two great kings, was to convince the sage that the girl came from a great family. Since she was his daughter, and at the same time a sister of Kshatriyas, she did not come from a lower class family. Manu therefore offered her to Kardama as just suitable for his purpose. It is clear that although the daughter was mature in age and qualities, she did not go out and find her husband independently. She expressed her desire for a suitable husband corresponding to her character, age, and quality, and the father himself, out of affection for his daughter, took charge of finding such a husband. Text 10. The moment she heard from the sage Narada of your noble character, learning, beautiful appearance, youth, and other virtues, she fixed her mind upon you. This was a missing piece of the puzzle. I knew this was somewhere, but I didn't remember the verse. So it's not that he just went like willy-nilly around the universe. He actually knew where he was going because she had already selected him in her heart. Purport. The girl Devahuti did not personally see Kardama Muni, nor did she personally experience his character or qualities, since there was no social intercourse by which she could gain such understanding. But she heard about Kardama Muni from the authority of Narada Muni. Hearing from an authority is a better experience than gaining personal understanding. She heard from Narada Muni that Kardama Muni was just fit to be her husband. Therefore she became fixed in her heart that she would marry him, and she expressed her desire to her father, who therefore brought her before him. Text 11. Therefore please accept her, O chief of the Brahmanas, for I offer her with faith, and she is in every respect fit to be your wife and take charge of your household duties. Purport. The words Griyamedishu Karmasu mean in household duties. Another word is also used here, Sarvatmana Nanurupam. Sarvatmana Nanurupam. The purport is that a wife should not only be equal to her husband in age, character, and qualities, but must be helpful to him in his household duties. The household duty of a man is not to satisfy his sense gratification, but to remain with the wife and children, and at the same time attain advancement in spiritual life. One who does not do so is not a householder, but a grihamedi. Two words are used in Sanskrit literature. One is grihastha, and the other is grihamedi. The difference between grihamedi and grihastha is that grihastha is also an ashram, or spiritual order. But if one simply satisfies his senses as a householder, then he is a grihamedi. For a grihamedi, to accept a wife means to satisfy the senses. But for a grihastha, a qualified wife is an assistant in every respect for advancement in spiritual activities. It is the duty of the wife to take charge of household affairs and not to compete with the husband. A wife is meant to help, but she cannot help her husband unless she is completely equal to her in age, quality, character, and quality. Text 12. To deny an offering that has come of itself is not commendable, even for one absolutely free from all attachment, much less one addicted to sensual pleasure. Purport. In material life, everyone is desirous of sense gratification. Therefore, a person who gets an object of sense gratification without endeavor should not refuse to accept it. Kardama Muni was not meant for sense gratification, yet he aspired to marry and prayed to the Lord for a suitable wife. This was known to Swayambhuva Manu. He indirectly convinced Kardama Muni, "You desire a suitable wife like my daughter, and she is now present before you. You should not reject the fulfillment of your prayer. You should accept my daughter." Text 13. One who rejects an offering that comes of its own accord, but later begs a boon from a miser, thus loses his widespread reputation, and his pride is humbled by the neglectful behavior of others. Whoa, shall we hear that again? One who rejects an offering that comes of its own accord, but later begs a boon from a miser, thus loses his widespread reputation, and his pride is humbled by the neglectful behavior of others. Purport. The general procedure of Vedic marriage is that a father offers his daughter to a suitable boy. That is a very respectable marriage. A boy should not go to the girl's father, and ask for the hand of his daughter in marriage. That is considered to be humbling one's respectable position. Swayambhuva Manu wanted to convince Kardama Muni, since he knew that the sage wanted to marry a suitable girl. I am offering just such a suitable wife. Do not reject the offer, or else because you are in need of a wife, you will have to ask for such a wife from someone else who may not behave with you so well. In that case, your position will be humbled. Another feature of this incident is that Swayambhuva Manu was the emperor, but he went to offer his qualified daughter to a poor brahmana. Kardama Muni had no worldly possessions. He was a hermit living in the forest, but he was advanced in culture. Therefore, in offering one's daughter to a person, the culture and quality are counted as prominent, not wealth or any other material consideration. Text 14. Swayambhuva Manu continued, O wise man, I heard that you were prepared to marry. Please accept your hand, which is being offered to you by me, since you have not taken a vow of perpetual celibacy. Purport. The principle of brahmacharya is celibacy. There are two kinds of brahmacharis. One is called naishtika brahmachari, which means one who takes a vow of celibacy for his whole life, whereas the other, the upakurvana brahmachari, is a brahmachari who takes a vow of celibacy up to a certain age. For example, he may take the vow to remain celibate up to 25 years of age. Then, with the permission of his spiritual master, he enters married life. Brahmacharya is student life, the beginning of life in the spiritual orders, and the principle of brahmacharya is celibacy. Only a householder can indulge in sense gratification or sex life, not a brahmachari. Swayambhuva Manu requested Kardama Muni to accept his daughter, since Kardama had not taken the vow of naishtika brahmacharya. He was willing to marry, and the suitable daughter of a high royal family was presented. Text 15. The great sage replied, Certainly I have a desire to marry, and your daughter has not yet married or given her word to anyone. Therefore our marriage, according to the Vedic system, can take place. Purport. There were many considerations by Kardama Muni before accepting the daughter of Swayambhuva Manu. Most important is that Devahuti had first of all fixed her mind on marrying him. She did not choose to have any other man as her husband. That is a great consideration because female psychology dictates that when a woman offers her heart to a man for the first time, it is very difficult for her to take it back. Also, she had not married before. She was a virgin girl. All these considerations convinced Kardama Muni to accept her. Therefore he said, Yes, I shall accept your daughter under religious regulations of marriage. There are different kinds of marriages, of which the first-class marriage is held by inviting a suitable bridegroom for the daughter and giving her in charity, well-dressed and well-decorated with ornaments, along with a dowry according to the means of the father. There are other kinds of marriage, such as Gandharva marriage and marriage by love, which are also accepted as marriage. Even if one is forcibly kidnapped and later on accepted as a wife, that is also accepted. But Kardama Muni accepted the first-class way of marriage because the father was willing and the daughter was qualified. She had never offered her heart to anyone else. All these considerations made Kardama Muni agree to accept the daughter of Swayambhuva Manu. Text 16. Let your daughter's desire for marriage, which is recognized in the Vedic scriptures, be fulfilled. Who would not accept her hand? She is so beautiful that by her bodily luster alone, she excels the beauty of her ornaments. Purport. Kardama Muni wanted to marry Devahuti in the recognized manner of marriage prescribed in the scriptures. As stated in the Vedic scriptures, the first-class process is to call the bridegroom to the home of the bride and hand her over to him in charity, with a dowry of necessary ornaments gold, furniture, and other household paraphernalia. This form of marriage is prevalent among higher class Hindus even today, and it is declared in the Shastras to confer great religious merit on the bride's father. To give a daughter in charity to a suitable son-in-law is considered to be one of the pious activities of a householder. There are 8 forms of marriage mentioned in the scripture, Manusmriti, but only one process of marriage, Brahma or Rajasika marriage, is now current. Other kinds of marriage, by love, by exchange of garlands, or by kidnapping the bride, are now forbidden in this Kali age. Formerly, Kshatriyas would, at their pleasure, kidnap a princess from another royal house, and there would be a fight between the Kshatriya and the girl's family. Then the kidnapper was the winner. If the kidnapper was the winner, the girl would be offered to him for marriage. Even Krishna married Rukmini by that process, and some of his sons and grandsons also married by kidnapping. Krishna's grandsons kidnapped Duryodhana's daughter, which caused a fight between the Kuru and Yadu families. Afterward, an adjustment was made by the elderly members of the Kuru family. Such marriages were current in bygone ages, but at the present moment they are impossible because the strict principles of Kshatriya life have practically been abolished. Since India has become dependent on foreign countries, the particular influences of our social orders have been lost. Now, according to the scriptures, everyone is a Shudra. The so-called Brahmanas, Kshatriyas and Vaishyas have forgotten their traditional activities, and in the absence of these activities, they are called Shudras. It is said in the scriptures, Kalo Shudra Sambhavaha. In the age of Kali, everyone will be like Shudras. The traditional social customs are not followed in this age, although formerly they were followed strictly. Text 17. I have heard that Vishwavasu, the great Gandharva, his mind stupefied with infatuation, fell from his airplane after seeing your daughter playing with the ball on the roof of the palace, for she was indeed beautiful with her tinkling ankle bells and her eyes moving to and fro. Purport. It is understood that not only at the present moment, but in those days also, there were skyscrapers. Herein we find the word Harmya Prishte. Harmya means a very big palatial building. Swad Vimanat means from his own airplane. It is suggested that private airplanes or helicopters were also current in those days. The Gandharva, Vishwavasu, while flying in the sky, could see Devahuti playing ball on the roof of the palace. Playing ball was also current, but aristocratic girls would not play in public place. Ball playing and such other pleasures were not meant for ordinary women and girls. Only princesses, like Devahuti, could indulge in such sports. It is described here that she was seen from the flying airplane. This indicates that the palace was very high, otherwise how could one see her from an airplane? The vision was so distinct that the Gandharva Vishwavasu was bewildered by her beauty, and by hearing the sound of her ankle bangles, and being captivated by the sound of her beauty, he fell down. Kardama Muni mentioned the incident as he had heard it. Text 18. Because the word got around in those days. You didn't need an internet. Somehow or other he found out in the forest that this guy fell out of an airplane by looking at a girl playing on a roof. What wise man would not welcome her? This is text 18. What wise man would not welcome her, the very ornament of womanhood, the beloved daughter of Swayambhuva Manu and sister of Uttanapad? Those who have not worshipped the gracious feet of the goddess of fortune cannot even perceive her, yet she has come of her own accord to seek my hand. Purport. Kardama Muni praised the beauty and qualification of Devahuti in different ways. Devahuti was actually the ornament of all ornamented beautiful girls. A girl becomes beautiful by putting ornaments on her body, but Devahuti was more beautiful than the ornaments. She was considered the ornament of the ornamented beautiful girls. Demigods and Gandharvas were attracted by her beauty. Kardama Muni, although a great sage, was not a denizen of the heavenly planets, but it is mentioned in the previous verse that Vishwavasu, who came from heaven, also attracted by the beauty of Devahuti, was also attracted by the beauty of Devahuti. Besides her personal beauty, she was a daughter of Emperor Swayambhuva and sister of King Uttanapad. Who could refuse the hand of such a girl? Text 19. Therefore I shall accept this chaste girl as my wife on the condition that after she bears semen from my body, I shall accept the life of devotional service accepted by the most perfect human beings. That process was described by Lord Vishnu. It is free from envy. What a high culture, eh? Can't even imagine it now, this kind of culture. Purport. Kardama Muni expressed his desire for a beautiful wife to Emperor Swayambhuva Manu and accepted the emperor's daughter for marriage. Kardama Muni was in the hermitage practicing complete celibacy as a brahmachari, and although he had the desire to marry, he did not want to be a householder for the whole span of his life because he was conversant with the Vedic principles of human life. According to Vedic principles, the first part of life should be utilized in brahmacharya for the development of character and spiritual qualities. In the next part of life, one may accept a wife and beget children, but one should not beget children like cats and dogs. Kardama Muni desired to beget a child who would be a ray of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. One should beget a child who can perform the duties of Vishnu. Otherwise, there is no need to produce children. There are two kinds of children born of good fathers. One is educated in Krishna consciousness so that he can be delivered from the clutches of Maya in that very life, and the other is a ray of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and teaches the world the ultimate goal of life. As will be described in later chapters, Kardama Muni begot such a child, Kapila, the incarnation of the personality of Godhead, who enunciated the philosophy of Sankhya. Great householders pray to God to send his representative so that there may be auspicious movement in human society. This is one reason to beget a child. Another reason is that a highly enlightened parent can train a child in Krishna consciousness so that the child will not have to come back again to this miserable world. Parents should see to it that the child born of them does not enter the womb of a mother again. Unless one can train a child for liberation in that life, there is no need to marry or produce children. If human society produces children like cats and dogs for the disturbance of social order, then the world becomes hellish, as it has in this age of Kali. In this age, neither parents nor their children are trained. Both are animalistic and simply eat, sleep, mate, defend, and gratify their senses. This disorder in social life cannot bring peace to human society. Kardama Muni explains beforehand that he would not associate with the girl Devahuti for the whole duration of his life. He would simply associate with her until she had a child. In other words, sex life should be utilized only to produce a nice child, not for any other purpose. Human life is especially meant for complete devotion to the service of the Lord. That is the philosophy of Lord Chaitanya. After fulfilling his responsibility to produce a nice child, one should take sannyas and engage in the perfectional Paramahansa stage. Paramahansa refers to the most highly elevated perfectional stage of life. There are 4 stages within sannyas life, and Paramahansa is the highest order. Srimad-Bhagavatam is called the Paramahansa Samhita, the treatise for the highest class of human beings. The Paramahansa is free from envy. In other stages, even in the householder stage of life, there is competition and envy. But since the activities of the human being in the Paramahansa stage are completely engaged in Krishna consciousness or devotional service, there is no scope for envy. In the same order as Kardama Muni, about 100 years ago, Thakur Bhaktivinoda also wanted to beget a child who could preach the philosophy and teachings of Lord Chaitanya to the fullest extent. By his prayers to the Lord, he had as his child Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj, who at the present moment is preaching the philosophy of Lord Chaitanya throughout the entire world through his bona fide disciples. Humility, Prabhupada's humility. Give all the credit to his spiritual master. Text 20. The highest authority for me is the unlimited Supreme Personality of Godhead, from whom this wonderful creation emanates, and in whom its sustenance and dissolution rest. He is the origin of all Prajapatis, the personalities meant to produce entities in this world. Purport. Kardama Muni was ordered by his father, Prajapati, to produce children. In the beginning of creation, the Prajapatis were meant to produce the large population which was to reside in the planets of the gigantic universe. But Kardama Muni said that although his father was Prajapati, who desired him to produce children, actually his origin was the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Vishnu. Because Vishnu is the origin of everything, he is the actual creator of the universe. He is the actual maintainer. And when everything is annihilated, it rests in him alone. That is the conclusion of Srimad-Bhagavatam. For creation, maintenance, and annihilation, there are the three deities, Brahma, Vishnu, and Maheshwara, Shiva. But Brahma and Maheshwara are qualitative expansions of Vishnu. Vishnu is the central figure. Vishnu therefore takes charge of maintenance. No one can maintain the whole creation but him. There are innumerable entities, and they have innumerable demands. No one but Vishnu can fulfill the innumerable demands of all the innumerable living entities. Brahma is ordered to create, and Shiva is ordered to annihilate. The middle function, maintenance, is taken charge of by Vishnu. Kardama Muni knew very well by his power in progressive spiritual life that Vishnu, the personality of Godhead, was his worshipable deity. Whatever Vishnu desired was his duty and nothing else. He was not prepared to beget a number of children. He would beget only one child who would help the mission of Vishnu. As stated in Bhagavad Gita, whenever there is a discrepancy in the discharge of religious principles, the Lord descends to the surface of the earth to protect religious principles and to annihilate the miscreants. Marrying and begetting a child is considered to liquidate one's debts to the family in which one is born. There are many debts which are imposed upon a child just after his birth. There are debts to family. There are debts to the family in which one is born, debts to the demigods, debts to the pitas, debts to the rishis, etc. But if someone engages only in the service of the Supreme Lord, the personality of Godhead, who is actually worshipable, then even without trying to liquidate other debts, one becomes free from all obligations. Kardama Muni preferred to devote his life as a servant of the Lord in Paramahansa knowledge and to beget a child only for that purpose, not to beget numberless children, to fill up the vacancies in the universe. So we should always remember this. Sometimes, the other night, someone was questioning or wondering about how it was that Kardama Muni, even though he was a sage, ended up marrying, and then they traveled around for a long time and had a lot of sensual activity, like described to be like, I don't know, pretty sensual. But the fact is that he already knew it was his duty to produce children. So he was doing it out of duty. And then on the other hand, he was destined to be the Father of God. So you can't become the Father of God unless you're a liberated soul. So therefore we can't understand these activities from a materialistic point of view. We have to always take into consideration everything about the situation. That's why the purports of Prabhupada are so important, invaluable. We could not understand these scriptures just by hearing the verses. Okay. Text 21. Sri Maitreya said, O great warrior Vidura, the sage Kardama said this much only, and then became silent, thinking of his worshipable Lord Vishnu, who was a lotus on his navel. As he silently smiled, his face captured the mind of Devahuti, who began to meditate upon the great sage. Purport. It appears that Kardama Muni was fully absorbed in Krishna consciousness, because as soon as he became silent, he at once began to think of Lord Vishnu. That is the way of Krishna consciousness. Pure devotees are so absorbed in thought of Krishna that they have no other engagement. Although they may seem to think or act otherwise, they are always thinking of Krishna. The smile of such a Krishna conscious person is so attractive that simply by smiling he wins so many admirers, disciples, and followers. Text 22. After having unmistakably known the decision of the queen, as well as that of Devahuti, the emperor most gladly gave his daughter to the sage, whose host of virtues was equaled by hers. 23. Empress Shatarupa lovingly gave most valuable presents suitable for the occasion, such as jewelry, clothes, and household articles in dowry to the bride and bridegroom. Purport. The custom of giving one's daughter in charity with a dowry is still current in India. The gifts are given according to the position of the father of the bride. Paribarhan Mahadanan means the dowry which must be awarded to the bridegroom at the time of marriage. Here, Mahadanam means greatly valuable gifts befitting the dowry of an empress. The words Bhusha, Vasa, Parichadan also appear here. Bhusha means ornaments, Vasaha means clothing, and Parichadan means various household articles. All things befitting the marriage ceremony of an emperor's daughter were awarded to Kardama Muni, who until now was observing celibacy as the brahmachari. The bride Devahuti was very richly dressed with ornaments.